Have you ever noticed that some of the most real things we experience are often called illusions? Things like free will, things like love, things even like consciousness. We say that free will is an illusion because everything operates on causality. We say love is an illusion because it's just a mammalian attachment system that's operated through hormones and endorphins and serotonin, dopamine. We even say consciousness is just an emergent property or phenomena of the brain. Yet, free will and love and consciousness and many other things like it, beauty or truth, a relationship with God even, or the universe, or whatever term you want to use. All of these things are the most intimate and real things we know. So isn't that fascinating? That the most real things we can experience are often the ones that are targeted as illusions. What's doing the targeting? Well, I think it's both science and religion, or rather reductionism, and religion / spirituality. On the one hand, with reductionism, you have this worldview where everything is just made of matter. Not that anyone knows what matter actually is, nor can we. And then on the other hand, you have religion and New Age spirituality saying things like, you're not your body, you're a soul or a spirit. You are not a separate entity and consciousness or experience. You are one with everything, one with God, one with the universe, etc. So both of these things, they often have stood oppositional to one another, haven't they? Sort of a very materialist view of the world and an idealist view of the world, and they've gone head to head. But they're actually the same thing. They're gaslighting us out of the only capital T truth we could ever know, our own innate experience. I mean, what else can be actually truly known? Anything we go on to experience is always filtered through us. There's no stepping out of it. There's no getting away from it. In both instances, it's the mind trying to transcend our lived, felt sense. It's trying to conceive of structures of reality. Reductionism is trying to get to the bottom layer of it, and spirituality and religion, the top layer. We're being pinched from above and below. We're being squeezed out of our experience. But both are happening in the mind. Both are taking us out of presence, out of being. And it's understandable why the mind does this. We suddenly wake up to find ourselves in a very disorienting situation. Here we are. We exist, suddenly, as if from nothing. And toward what, if not nothing? It's quite terrifying. It's unsettling, to say the least. And so of course the mind is going to try to control it in some way. Of course the mind is going to want to understand what it's meant to do with being. Because simply being is terribly uncomfortable. And yet the only truth we can ever know is right here, right now. You know, even the body is a concept in the mind. Have you ever noticed that? That with a lot of things like somatic experiencing, through somatic therapy or anything like that, we're often told to go back to our bodies. That's why breathing is so important. Breath work and through meditation, breathing is the grounding force. It brings us back to our bodies. But did you notice that the body is really just another concept in the mind? You're conceiving of breath. You're conceiving of weightiness, of solidity, of pain, of pleasure. These are all concepts, and they're often experienced through the screen of the mind. They're not experienced fully and implicitly. Maybe in some instances you have completely lost your mind over to your experience. You know, they call that the flow state. The default mode network stops working. We stop self-assessing and pulling apart our lived experience. But then we come away from it and we think, oh yes, we were so in our bodies, and we make another mental narrative and projection about what that means, what the body is, etc. And that leads us either back down to reductionism or back up to the transcendent. But either way, we're pulled again out of our experience, our lived, felt sense. So how do we live? How do we live? How do we feel? I've pondered this my whole life. How ought I live? And I still don't have the answer. But the closest I can come is to pondering what it's not, or pondering what gets in the way of it, rather than pondering what it is. Because any kind of pondering is, you guessed it, more mind stuff. So we can identify what it's certainly not, and we can try to do less of what it's not, rather than try to find more of what it is, which we will inevitably lose touch with and never be able to grasp, because it will be through the mind that we attempt to do so. But we can say we can do less of conceptualizing. We can stop gaslighting ourselves out of our own experience, our own felt sense, our own reality. We can stop trying to seek a resolution to being, like it's a problem that needs solving. We can be aware and mindful of when our mind does spiral, either downward or upward. And you probably know people who do both to the nth degree. You probably know very hard, deterministic, reductionist materialists, and you probably know people that are a bit up in the clouds and away with the fairies and bypassing the human, raw, dirty experience by becoming more angelic and godlike and better than it all. But to be is to be muddy. It's to be grubby. It's to be lost and uncertain and disoriented. It's to be honest about all of those things. And it's through that honesty that true liberation, I think, might exist. Not liberation from anything, but a return to what we were before we needed to escape, before we needed liberation. I've been guilty of both. I've been terribly guilty of going too far down that rabbit hole and too far up into the clouds. I've been torn apart my whole life, not knowing which one is true, all the while completely ignoring the only truth I will ever and can ever know. My own immediate, heartfelt, honest sense of being. And that's why bathing in the mystery, basking in the mystery, I think, for me at least, is so important. And dare I say, for humans in general, so important to feel that disorientation, feel that lostness, but revel in it, marvel in it. And together, with one another, because it's with one another, the connection that we forge with one another, that helps us feel like we're not so alone to navigate the darkness. And we connect more through one another to our own sense of agency with one another. Our own sense of being a living, breathing entity, and of communing with something higher than ourselves. That's why I make these. Because it's through you, my friend, that other human beings are able to find themselves. It's through one another that we can peer deep into our own mirrors. And that's the beauty of this separation that we experience. The separation that is the requisite for love, for coming together. The longing of union in one way or another. We are all verbs. We are not nouns. We are always becoming. And never quite are.